The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, guys, to the session. Yet another out of the syllabus topic to help you to enhance your knowledge and to help you to get some extra information which will keep you different than the students of other institutes when you go for an interview. So, let me talk about today's topic. Today's topic is something useful and also advanced and also sometimes useful or beneficial for interview point of view also. So what actually is today's topic, let me tell you. And before that also there is a background which you should know before this topic, that also I'm going to tell you. So let's proceed one by one. So please note that here we are going to see this topic. Let me just show you. So the topic in the this we are going to see today, in the market they call as a queueable or programming, or sometimes people call queueable apex, or people in the interview can call queueable class. Now you just need to understand whatever he is saying ultimately is talking about this topic. Simple, okay? Because people use different words, so we should be aware about all that you know already. We discuss all these kind of things in our regular training, that you should know it is your responsibility to know all these things, not the interviewer's responsibility to discuss only those words which you know. Okay. So now let me tell you something about this topic. So to understand this topic, the background of this topic is to understand this topic, or I would say prerequisite of this topic is batch apex, or also called as batch class. You guys are aware about this? Have you seen this kind of thing ever in the past? Have you saw this kind of thing? Yes, of course, we have seen that. It was part of our program. Yes, we have seen that. We understood this topic. We learned this topic. Yes, we have seen this. Okay, fine. Second, another prerequisite is at the rate future annotation. Have you seen this before? Have you seen this kind of word before? Future annotation. Yes, we have seen that also. So in short, the prerequisite is known to you because we have seen this. It is a part of the, this is the topic which you guys already got from my side, either by the previous session or recent session, or the kind of before, or when we learn development at that time. But we have seen this, okay? And now, after this, now you can understand today's topic. And why it is necessary to know these two topics, because the next topic which we are talking about, this actually brought into the picture after so many years, when in the market these two were running. Only people used to use in the market these two, nothing else. But for giving more benefit and more advantage to customer, then Salesforce after so many years brought a new concept which is nothing but this. So that's why, to understand what is the benefit of this new topic, and also what are the issues with previous topics, this background is necessary. Okay, anyways, you have the videos, you can watch these two topics again if you want to recover, and then again see this today's session. Okay, but these two things are absolutely mandatory to know before we start again. Okay, so let's move ahead, and now let me tell you some problem, some important information. Just pay attention because it's going to be kind of advanced thing, and your focus is absolutely required. Your focus is absolutely necessary here. So let's speak about that. So please note, first of all, let me talk about common thing, kind of a common thing which you see here, like between all this topic which I told you, right? A kind of common thing. Let me tell you, the common thing is all these things which we discuss, like for example, queueable, that, future, all are asynchronous. Means they are not going to work in a synchronous way. For example, I told you that synchronous activities, or let's say these are synchronous example of synchronous. So all activities happen back to back. Activity 1, then only activity 2, then only activity 3 will start and happen back to back, not in the middle, not separately, and like a railway, all the bogies are associated with each other. If this railway, if this box moves ahead by 1 kilometer, then only this box will move ahead by 1 kilometer, and then only this box will move ahead by 1 kilometer. You know that. We have seen this kind of concept in the past. And asynchronous, asynchronous is everyone will work in its own thread. So, for example, activity 1, activity will say, I will go in this direction, I will go in my thread. Activity 2 will say, I will go in my direction. Activity 3 will say, I will go in my direction. Everyone will have different railway tracks. They're all going with their own railway tracks as per the resource availability. We have seen this thing in the past. It's an own thread in its own direction, its own execution flow. This is called as asynchronous, not having any sync with each other. And also, this kind of programming is used when we don't want to stop any ongoing thing. I hope you guys remember the concept of future annotation, where we discuss that this kind of things we learn when actually we want to make integration. For example, there is activity 1, and after that I want to make integration to .NET. So if I go in the synchronous way, then this activity will happen, and then after activity 1, then for integration, which can take maybe 1 minute, which can take maybe 30 seconds, we have to wait. And once everything is done, then the activity 3 will start. Such kind of things we don't do in the industry. We don't wait for the things which are time taking. For example, the large data processing, and we do by batch class. For example, any kind of integration we do by future. But we don't wait. We don't keep the things on hold in the real time project. In this case, we know, okay, this is going to take time. Okay, leave it, remove it, and put in at the red future, and let it go in its own thread. We don't want to disturb other people or other tasks, and we will continue A1 immediately, and let this integration work in its own thread. This way, asynchronous process is followed in this industry. And for that only, this kind of batch class and the future annotation, Salesforce industry used for many years. Then after many years, they brought one more thing that is called as queueable effects. And let me now talk about that one by one. So first thing, the class which actually implements, so let me show you the batch class topics code that we already saw in the past, that you are very much aware, and you guys know all these things. So please note that, for example, if you remember, we saw this code of batch class, okay, and in that we saw that actually how in that we saw that only because this normal class is implementing batchable interface, only because this normal class is implementing batchable interface, it became a batch class. That we understood already in the past, right? Similarly, the class which implements queueable interface that actually called as queueable apex class. Please note this point. Please note I'm talking about this class which implements this queueable interface. It's called as queueable apex class. Simple. Okay. And what is the benefit of this queueable interface? Actually, this interface helps you to make your normal class, to convert your ordinary class into a queueable class. And now, what is the special benefit of this kind of queueable class? That is something very important. Actually, this is an enhanced way. It is a kind of a advanced way of working in a asynchronous code as compared to future method. How? Let me tell you. Actually, in future method, if some kind of work is happening, listen very carefully as I'm saying. It's like a very important topic. Suppose it's a future method, and I'm performing some kind of activity. Let's say integration or anything. Then there is no way I can monitor, watch on my task what is the status and other information. No, not possible. And this is how we guys suffered for many years in the Salesforce development job. There is no way to understand what's happening in the background, what is the status. No idea. Close your eyes and just relax. And this will be suffered for many years. But now, here, as Queueable came into the picture, the biggest benefit is we can add the job in queue and monitor them. It's a very, very big advantage. Please note here that I will be having a queue. I will be having a queue, and here I will add, let's say, activity number 1, activity number 2, activity number 3. I can just queue my work, but all will work in asynchronous way, by the way. It doesn't mean that actually they are working in a synchronous way. Listen very carefully. Here it doesn't mean you are actually bringing synchronous coding into the picture. No, it will behave in asynchronous way. Everyone will have its own asynchronous method or format, but the biggest benefit is we can queue them. And apart from that, the biggest benefit is it will be it will give us chance to monitor. We can keep a watch on them. Everyone will work in its own thread separately, asynchronous way, but we can actually keep a monitor, we can keep a watch on that. This was not possible in Salesforce for many years, when we only used to use the the future and the batch class. Okay, so this is the biggest advantage. We can actually put the jobs in the queue in the and we can monitor them, but everything in asynchronous fashion. No one is going to stop for anyone. Listen carefully. No one is going to stop for anyone. The same style continued here, but we can monitor them. And please note also, if you remember in the batch class, if you remember, we had three functions. If you remember in the past, we discussed about this. What kind of functions are there in the batch class? Three functions: start, execute, finish. Listen carefully. In this case, only one function, execute. Only one function, execute. Only one function in the queueable, execute. Please note this point. Okay, but another interesting thing, if you can see here, all the batch class functions take what kind of parameter? You know that we have seen this batchable context, right? In the batch class, the parameter which used to be is batchable context. Here in the in the queue or queueable apex, the context is queueable context. So this was the parameter we used to use in the function in batch class. And please note, this is the parameter we are passing or using in queueable class. We are using in queueable class. And in the batch class, as we discussed, there are three functions: start, execute, finish. But in this case there is only one function, and that is nothing but execute. nothing else, only execute. Again, another difference. And now, let me tell you some more important information. If the Apex class, if we have now, let me tell you some business scenarios, some problems from IntelliLogic's project. So in IntelliLogic, what we do is, if there are some kind of Apex classes which are taking lots of time, long time to execute. Let's say, for example, large number of records we are processing in database, big operation on database, or connecting to a .NET project or Java project or SAP platform, or we recently did one work with Oracle platform integration. Then we can actually run this kind of activity asynchronously. As I said, you stopping someone, stopping task A or activity A because of the activity B is not good in the programming world or in Salesforce world. So we can run them asynchronously by using the queueable interface and adding this job in the queueable interface format. In this way, we can actually, it will like this asynchronous work, my integration work or my database, large database processing work will work in the background in its own thread. No disturbance. No one will stop. Everyone will work its own format, and this asynchronous work will work in the background, its own thread. And also this way, other code will not impact. They don't need to wait. And by the way, always remember it's a future or this future function or this concept. This is going to run in future. If you remember my previous session, I told you when it will run, even Salesforce doesn't know. For example, if I say that my task is there and to process some large database processing is there, and my activity one is there, and I'm going to use this because I don't want to stop other tasks, so I'm going to put this in asynchronous way. Anything you go for future, you go for queue, but when this will work, even Salesforce cannot tell. Why? Because it will be doing the work only when the resources are free, the server is having some resources free, then it will take the task. So please note, no one can tell when this task will work. It will take 2 seconds, it will take 20 seconds. No one in the industry can tell this. Okay. It will be available as per the availability of the resources. And the benefit of using Queueable interface is, uh, you know that if you remember the governor uh, limit concept, please note, you know that in the governor limit we have some rules and regulations to follow in Salesforce, and you know that those are small limits or shorter limits in the synchronous format. For example, let's say you want to run the SQL query in synchronous way, normal Apex class, then in one go, in one transaction, only 100 SQL queries. But suppose you are making these queries with by using future annotation, asynchronous way, then you know in asynchronous the limits are higher, or heap size, or CPU timeout, or the asynchronous, or for example query. So these are the, there are three benefits, three special benefits of using asynchronous code. You will get additional governor limit, 200 query in one transaction, 12 MB heap size. Heap size is nothing but the memory that you get in the runtime, and also 60,000 milliseconds of duration you can have for completing your Apex transactions. These are the benefits which we get by Queueable also, future also, or any asynchronous work you are doing in Salesforce. For all, we get this benefits. That's why we use this. Now, if any interviewer will ask you that what kind of, this is interview question and common and famous and regular interview question, what benefit you will be getting by using Queueable? Why don't you continue with the future or other existing asynchronous concept? You can say actually, our, you can say in the Queueable class we can also have a variable of non or user defined data type variable. For example, please note that you can tell that in my Queueable class I can use also s object type of variable. Like for example, this is non primitive data means user defined data. You have seen that. Okay, we have seen it in the topic of collections, if you remember. Collections, this is object, these kind of things. Or when we started learning development, we discussed there are two types of data. One is primitive data, integer, double, boolean. Primitive data, list, set, map, s object, user defined data type. So we can even we can even use in the Queueable class user defined data type. This is the benefit number one you can tell in the interview. Second benefit, you can tell in the interview that when we submit the job, or in fact, actually you can say that by whenever I use Queueable functionality, then whenever I submit the work on any activity, then it will give me, or I can get an ID. I can get an ID of my task. For example, there is an activity which I put in the Queueable class, and I said, okay, start this work in future whenever you get the time, whenever you have free resources. Okay, start this integration work, this database work. Okay, start. But we don't know when it's going to work. But it will give you an ID, and this ID will help you to identify your job, and you can monitor its progress. This was not available in Salesforce for many years. Developers were doing all these things without any tracking. So please note, we can do this by programming, by querying the record, and please note, we can get the status of our task by when we submit the task in asynchronous way. Listen carefully. When we submit our task in asynchronous way, that is in the Queueable, I'm talking about Queueable, then you can tell we get an ID in return, and then by using this ID, we can actually understand what is the progress. How? There is a table called as async apex job. This is nothing but a table. Table means object, you know. Okay, so this is a table in which the status will be mentioned, and we can pass our ID, and we can say, can you please show me the status of the status of this ID, and it will show you. Simple. And next, third benefit, we can actually chain one job to another, and this way we can actually have the chaining of Queueable activities. Now please note here, even though it's not compulsory to have chain, listen carefully. Even, for example, I have a task 1, I have task 1. So I have task 1, and for example, in the task 1, I'm planning to actually, so this is my task 1, and I want to do, this is the integration task, this is the integration to .NET, and I'm going to make it as a Queueable, means I'm going to call this in a Queueable class. Any class which is a Queueable class, I'm calling this code in that class. Automatically it will go in the asynchronous manner. In the future, after few seconds, whenever it will have the resources, it will work. Okay, it will start working. Okay, no problem. Now the another benefit is, now this is generally we use individual work. So this task I'm calling for integration in another way, in another activity, another task of database I will do in another thread. This way we do. But suppose you have a requirement where back to back as a chain, you want to call this asynchronous activity. Please note, this was also impossible in Salesforce for many years. Only one task at a time, only work one activity at a time. But now, by using the Queueable interface, I can actually make a chain. So what actually can do, task 1 calling task 2, task 1 calling task 2, after task 2, task 3, after task 3, task 4. This kind of queue also, if want, we can make again one more special thing of this Queueable interface. This was not possible in any other asynchronous programming, for example future or anything else, or batch, etc. Please note, in Queueable we can do this kind of chaining. Okay, remember, this concept is called as chaining, and in the interview, if they ask you, then definitely say yes. The special thing about the Queueable interface is chaining. We can do the chaining of tasks, and this way we can follow the activities back to back, back to back. This is useful. This is useful, or you can use the chain concept of calling one job to another job by starting a second job from a running job. Means first job is running, after that call a second job. Like this we can do. And when we use this, so please note, whenever we have any kind of requirement to call a sequential process in the project, not regularly required, but still keep in your mind such kind of sequential process required, then only you can use this concept. Okay, please note this point. All right, so now I'm going to teach you the code. I'm going to show you the code and see how it's going to work. Just wait a minute, my baby is shouting. Just 1 minute, just 1 minute. Okay, thank you for the hold. So actually she was sleeping and suddenly woke up and started shouting. Okay, so let's continue now. Now there is silence. So now I'm going to talk about the code. So how actually you can use this code and how you can write this kind of functionality. If you understood the concept of batch class, it's actually not at all difficult for you. Okay, so let me tell you first of all how we can actually perform this activity. First of all, understand any normal class become batch class by the concept of batchable interface. Similarly, here also same concept. Here also same concept. Any class will become the any class will become the queueable only when we actually call queueable interface for the same. So now let me show you the code for you so that you can understand how actually this process happens. So here, so let's say I'm going to create one class. The name of the class is queueable scenario. Now this is a normal class. See, if I remove this, cut. It's a normal ordinary class having no special features. But just by writing this, now it became a special class, a queueable class. Okay. Now we can do chaining and asynchronous work, and ID will be all this. ID will be given. All these benefits comes after this. And after that, now in that class, so let me close the class. So here the class got closed. Class closed. But without function class is useless, so we need to declare one function. And in batch class we have three functions, here only one function. And that function is nothing but the execute function, which will have queueable context, which will pass in the information of queueable context type of data. If you remember in the batch class what we discussed, it will give us the information which is actually related to batchable context. Look at this. What we used to get, database.batchable context. Here similarly I will mention, for example, queueable context. Look at this. Okay, queueable context, here batchable context, almost same. Okay, and next, now let me close my function, and here function closed, function closed. Okay, function got closed. And now my whatever heavy logic I'm processing, I'm doing integration, or I'm working on some large database activity, anything you can put now in that. But anyways, now there are hundreds of things to do inside that we can perform by this activity. And writing some integration code, or doing some kind of activity like this, that will be done here. So for example, let's say I can write integration to, let's say, SAP, or let's say for example large data processing, anything your wish. But if it is taking time and you want ID, then go in this type. Okay, so this way you can actually perform the activity. Please note now here, in this case, once this activity is done, then I'll tell you that suppose, so, and by the way, inside whatever coding you want to write, you can write it. Okay, as I said, inside whatever you want to write, you can write it, anything. But suppose we perform this activity, okay, and now if you want to add this class in a queue, we want to add this in the queue format. Okay, so how we can actually add this, so how we can perform, so to add this class as a job in the queue, to add in the queue, we have to call a function called as nQJob. We have to call a function that's called as nQJob. Okay, and please note that let me just here make this code shorter so that we can have more space to understand the remaining concept. So this is mine. So above is my queueable class. Okay. Now I want to put this class in a queue, because we can have this special feature of queue also. We can do this for queue also, right? So in this case, what we need to do, just simply do one thing. There is a class called a system, and in that there is a function called as queueable job. In that, just pass new. You know why to create new, because it's to get a new, it's to get space, to get memory. We use new keyword, and then write this class name queueable scenario. That's it. This class will be going in the queue, and in return we will get the ID, and by this ID you can do tracking, which was impossible in the past in other asynchronous functionality. So after you submit your queueable class for execution, the job will be added to the queue and you will be processed when system will have free resource, not in the middle, not in urgent mode. Whenever system wants, Salesforce server wants, it will work at that time. But the biggest advantage is now we can monitor the status of the job by doing programming, and also we can go by this way. So another way is there in setup. I'll just show you. So for example, so for example, I'm logging to my Salesforce environment. So I'm logging to my Salesforce environment, and let me go to my Salesforce environment. Login. So I'm telling you how you can track, where you can check the status of this queueable activity. So I'm going to log into Salesforce environment, and it is getting logged in. So once you log in, then go to setup, and in the setup, so type apex jobs, type apex jobs, this one. Okay, so this is the area where you can see the information about your cable work, and you can see all the tracking here. This is one way. This is non-programming way. Without programming, if you want to see whatever information is coming here, you can do this without writing any kind of program. Okay, that is point number one. Second way is you can actually make a query. Okay, I told you, right, we can make a query also. So how actually we can make a query, let me tell you. So first of all, let me tell you, so to monitor status of the job, we can do below things. What? One, go to setup, then go to Apex jobs and see the details. This is one possible way. Second way is query. We can make a query, and this is also sometimes they ask in the interview. By the way, the Apex job is here. You can see your batch Apex, schedule Apex, queue Apex. It will tell you also what is the type. It's a batch Apex, schedule Apex, queue Apex. It will tell you. Okay. If you run this, it will show you it's a batch Apex, queue Apex. It will tell you the status. And second thing, the query. The query is something which they ask uh, in the interview. So here, what we will do, we first of all need to make a query on the table, and the table name is called as async apex. So look at this. First of all, table name is async apex. Okay, table name is async apex. This one, and you simply say select status from async apex where id equal to job id, because you just got job id, right? This is job id you got. So by using this job id, you can pass in the query and you can say what's happening with my task, show me, and we can get the status in the format of async async apex job only. Please note this was also not possible. This kind of status tracking was not possible in the past. This is possible by id. We can pass id, we can see the status. All these things we can do by this way. Okay, so I would like to tell you now some important notes which will be helpful for you in your future. So important note for job. Okay, so as you understood this concept and you understood how you can put your code in a queueable format, now some important concepts. First of all, please note that whatever coding we are writing in the queue job, it is going to be counted as governor limit for asynchronous apex. Okay, the right hand side column which I told you, so you guys are pretty much clear. It's going to be counted in this, okay, in this way. Whatever asynchronous limits are there, for example, in the queueable class we can have 200 SOQL queries in one transaction. Also, please note that we can actually add up to 50 jobs in the queue. Okay, and that's also possible. 50 jobs in the queue of queueable. I'm having this queue, so I'm going to add task 1, task 2, task 3, like this. Up to 50 I can add in a queue. Okay, forget about other topics. In other topics there is no concept of queue and IDs, so no need to remember for other topics. So only for this topic this queue concept is there, plus ID tracking concept is there, plus shining is there. So please note up to 50 jobs you can add in a queue. And apart from that, if you want to do chaining, very famous interview question, how we can do chaining of asynchronous activity, interviewer will ask you, simply say by queueable. Simple, that's the answer, that's the only solution in Salesforce. So please note, if you want to make a chaining, okay, you want to make a chaining, chain means one after another task is dependent. So I want to do task 1, then task 2, after that from task 2 call task 3, then from task 3 task 4 we are going to call, and then I'm going to call this. So all will be in asynchronous. Okay, this kind of style of calling is definitely possible in queueable only, only in queueable. But what is the depth of this? How many such tasks in chain you can make? Please note, no limit is there for the depth of chain job. No limit. How many back to back chain you want to make? No limit. That's a very fantastic facility. And please note that apart from that, sometimes interviewer will ask you some kind of questions to understand your capability to use queue or batch in the real-time project, and that's again a very important interview question. I would say here they will be asking you a comprehensive question on async programming. So they either can focus on, tell me what you know about batch effects. Okay, you will explain whatever we learn in the class. Okay, tell me what is the meaning of Queueable apex. You can explain the way we saw in today's class. Or they will ask you what is future annotation. Okay, you will explain the way we saw in the past. But sometimes they will check your knowledge in comprehensive way for all this asynchronous concept. They will ask you, tell me when you will use batch, when you will use queueable, etc. Please note, remember this very important line. Complete focus. Remember, tell to the interviewer that if in the project, if I have or if we have any heavy processing of task, and I don't want, and then in this case I will go batchable. If it's a heavy processing, I will go for batchable. And suppose it's and I want to work in future. Okay, listen carefully. It's a heavy processing, and I want to do in future. Then I will go for batch. Simple. It's a normal transaction, not heavy, and I want to call in future. Then I will go for queueable. Okay, and suppose I want to monitor my task, I will go for queueable. I want to get ID, I will go for queueable. I want to make chaining, I will go for queueable. And they will ask you future. Now to bypass the 101 error, I will use future. Or suppose I want to ensure that I am actually working in such a way that I can get some kind of extra limit extension. For example, I want to call more than 100 SOQL as we discussed before 1 minute. Then I will go for future. Plus mixed DML errors are coming. Then I will go for future. This also we discussed in the previous session. Okay. So this way you remember when to use which option, and according to that you're going to use the functionality. So let me make here one kind of a moral chart for you. Batch apex, you can say heavy processing plus in heavy processing I want, but in async mode. I want to do this in async mode. Okay, go for batch class. I want non-heavy processing, and I want to do this in async mode. I can go for Queueable apex, but that's not the only reason. I need job ID. I need chaining of jobs, moni- monitoring, tracking of jobs. I will go for this. When you will go for future annotation, all these are examples of asynchronous programming. They will all happen in future. No one knows in the industry when they will work. Normal apex class immediately it will work. Normal apex class immediately. This batch apex, queueable apex, future annotation, no one knows. Anytime it will work in future. And when you will use this, when I'm getting 101 error of SOQL, then I will actually use future annotation to extend my limit. Second, mix DML error I'm getting for setup non-setup object scenario, I will use future annotation. If you give this kind of answers, please note, then the interviewer will automatically understand what kind of knowledge you are having, and then it will be pretty much easy for you to get good results. Also, please note some additional information as a final point before we close. Final, but still useful info. Again, please note comprehensive info for a, a sync knowledge. Okay, I'm telling you some comprehensive info for your asynchronous knowledge. Async and see. Pay attention. It's kind of a comprehensive information I'm giving. So if it is a long running complex process, okay, long running complex process, then always prefer in your life, in your career, batch apex. And also you can schedule this if you want. And I hope you guys remember we have learned the topic schedule class. We can schedule the batch class, right? It can process up to 50 million records, by the way. 50 million records can be processed in the batch apex. Okay. And here I'm talking about, right now I'm talking about batch apex. Okay, I'm right now talking about batch apex. So it can process up to 50 million records. And please note, 5 concurrent jobs are allowed to run at a time. 5 concurrent jobs. Okay. And please note another important thing: future methods are not allowed in batch class. You cannot call async to async, async to async, async to async. Not possible. Okay, means here future methods are not allowed in the batch class. Next, apart from that, batch class will have 3 functions: start, execute, finish. Okay, so this is about the overview of batch apex. Second, future method, also called as future annotation. Anything they can say, you should be ready with both. So for avoiding mixed DML, we will use this. Second thing, if you want to perform complex DML operation, okay, and want to make some external web service call out integration, mostly for integrations we use future method. Only one small information I would like to tell you. Remember this, that at that time in the first line we write this, okay, then we write our function, so all these things. So then below, above line, we write function which holds code of integration. Okay, but at the beginning, call out true, we write, remember, interview question, interview question. And also please note that in the future method, only, so there is no return value for future method. It will not return anything. Okay, it will not return anything. It's a void return type. We have seen in the training void method. Okay, and also the parameter which you are going to pass for future must be primitive data type. Means, for example, integer, boolean, double. But you remember before 10 minutes we discussed Queueable accepts S objects also, or no user defined data type. That's not possible in future. In future, only primitive data type, nothing else, by the way. This is one difference. And finally, Queueable Apex. Please note, it is useful when we want to have both the operations. And please note, when we need to have both the operations, batch and future method, and it should be implemented then by queueable interface. Like you want both kind of scenarios, you want both benefits, then go for queueable. Please note, if one job is dependent on another job, means if you need chaining, then please note, for chaining go for queueable. Up to 50 chains, 50 jobs we can make in chaining, back to back, back to back, back to back. Like this, we can up to have 50 jobs. Okay, 50 jobs we can have. 50 jobs in a queue. Sorry, let me correct. Please note, we can have 50 jobs in a queue. We can add up to 50 jobs in a queue. But if you want to make the depth, you want to set some depth, means for example, you can add up to 50 jobs in a queue. That's okay. In a queue, we can add 50 items. But if you want to make chaining and depth, means for example, that you can chain one job to another and another and another and another and another. Like this, you want to make chaining, then please note, in this case, there is no limit. For example, it means I have, for example, my queue. I have my queue, and in the queue, I'm adding job 1, job 2, job 3 to monitor, to keep watch, to monitor. Then, like this, 50 jobs I can add. But after job 1, compulsory job 2. After job 2, compulsory job 3. After job 3, compulsory job 4. Such a depth, the depth of this chaining is not provided. You can have large such chaining sequences. Please remember that also. And queueable will accept non-primitive data also, for example, as the S object. And the most important, only queueable apex will give you job ID to monitor the progress. Please note, almost 15 to 20 very famous, important, and advanced Salesforce programming interview questions we have covered in today's session, plus three major topics for your job, future, batch, queue we have covered in this topic. Watch this video at least 2 times and you will see lots of benefit of this in your interview. Have a good time. Let's meet somewhere in next free session out of the syllabus topic. See ya.